Hey everybody, so squirrel, I just realized I'm wearing a goofy shirt. I want to talk about something in the Johnny Depp trial that happened yesterday. Today is, good question, I think it's the 24th. Anyways, the testimony of Dr. Spiegel, S-P-I-E-G-E-L, and apologies in advance, I'm probably going to at least call him Dr. Smeagol on at least once on accident, so if that happens, just whatever. You know, and given his behavior in court yesterday, Smeagol may be a more appropriate name than Spiegel, I don't know. But anyways, some interesting things happened on the stand I want to talk about. It was one of the most fiery, heated, and contentious exchanges between an attorney and a witness since the trial began. There have been some heated moments, but this guy was really a work of art. And I want to break down the reasons why, because it's, in my opinion at least, there's a lot of things that aren't actually being discussed online. And so, as usual, I kind of want to just sort of fill in some gaps and spaces for people. So here's ultimately what was going on, and then I'll break down the behaviors. So in a trial, a lot of people don't know this, the actual structure of a court proceeding. When you put a witness on the stand, whoever calls the witness, whether it's the plaintiff or defendant, in other words, Johnny Depp or Amber Heard, whichever side calls a witness, and they take turns calling witnesses, right? So if Johnny Depp's team calls a witness, the witness goes up on the stand, and then they ask him some very basic introductory questions like, who are you? What are your credentials? Tell us about yourself, that kind of stuff, like first date kind of things, right? And then they go into some questions that are kind of more like second date level questions. And then after whoever calls the witness, once they're done with their direct examination, then the other side gets their chance to ask questions, and that's called the cross-examination, right? And during the cross-examination, that's when the attorneys want to try and build their case either by discrediting the witness or getting the witness to credit their side, or there's a third option, getting the witness to unknowingly or involuntarily or unexpectedly damaging the case of the other side. That's called impeachment, different from Trump and Clinton impeachment. Impeaching a witness is where you direct your line of questioning in such a way that the witness will ultimately end up damaging the case of the side who called them. And that's what happened yesterday. And it is a brilliant tactic known as a credibility trap. That's just what I call it. That's what I've heard it called before. I'm sure there's other names for it as well. And so I'm going to get into that because on the surface, it looks like the guy is being combative. And he is, but there's a method to it. So when you impeach a witness, and this is what you've got to understand before you watch the videos of Smeagol. And if you go to watch the videos, I would definitely recommend watching the entirety of, I call him Smeagol, whatever, Smeagol's, the whole of his testimony, right? So direct, cross, and redirect, right? The redirect is after the cross-examination, the original side gets a second chance to rebut some of the things uncovered in the cross-exam and set the record straight, etc., right? So for any witness testimony, there's three phases: direct exam, cross-exam, and redirect. I forgot to mention redirect earlier. If you're going to impeach the witness, and this is where the impeachment process is different from standard court proceedings. If you're going to try to impeach the witness, anyone who plays spades knows that you can go nil, which means in spades, you're going to say that you're not going to win any hands whatsoever. And if you pull it off, then you get 100 points. You can also announce that you're going blind nil, which means before you ever even look at the cards, you can say, you know what, this hand, I'm going blind nil and I'm going for 200, right? So you're going big. And you have to announce that to everybody who's sitting at the table before you ever look at your cards. Well, impeachment is largely the same thing. If you're going to go for impeachment, like if you're going to actually go so far as to say, you know what, I'm actually going to try and turn this witness against the side who called them, you have to tell opposing counsel and you have to tell the judge, and both of them have to be on the same page. And ground rules are laid out, right? So the judge is going to say, okay, you're going to go for impeachment. What is your plan for impeachment? How are you going to do it? On what lines of questioning? And the opposing counsel, they all have to be on the same page, right? And so that's largely what happens in trials, where you'll see, here's a good indicator if you ever watch these things. When you see or hear an attorney object, but they don't say what they're objecting to. Usually you'll hear objection hearsay, objection speculation, leading the witness, those types of things. But if they say objection, may we approach your honor, where they don't actually say why they're objecting and they don't want to argue it publicly, that's usually what's going on. You'll usually hear that when an opposing counsel does that, that's usually what's at stake. And so that's a good indicator that things are about to get interesting. When you hear objection, may we approach, right? That's a big clue there. And that's what was happening yesterday. And you'll see it during Spiegel's direct exam in the very beginning. Amber Heard's attorney mentions the name Shannon Curry. And as soon as they mention the name Shannon Curry, you hear objection, may we approach. Okay, and that's big. That's real important to what happened, because they were planning to impeach Dr. Spiegel. And so here's how they did it, and here's why he's so combative. Okay, Dr. Spiegel, if you listen to his direct exam, this guy is one of the, like, he is accomplished. Okay, like, he's a fellow of the APA. He's on, like, the board of some Ivy League school. He's written books. He's published articles. Like, he is a highly credentialed, very successful psychologist. He teaches in a medical school, teaches psychology, all this other stuff. Like, he's board certified, right? He's accomplished, like, all the things. Like, he beat the main quest and he's conquered all the side quests, right? So what they did, when you cross-examine, you can get someone to voluntarily help your case, right? So somebody else's witness is up there. You can ask them questions to try and help your case. You can ask them, you can try to discredit them and catch them in contradicting themselves. Like, if they've changed their testimony, or if they contradict something that they've said before, then you can point that out and call their integrity into question. You can call their ethics into question, right? But then on impeachment, you have to get them to damage the other side, right? And so what the credibility trap is rather than trying to discredit this guy because he's so highly credentialed, you're not going to be able to discredit somebody who's a fellow, who's a psychology teacher, and all of these things, right? Walls full of paper, yeah? So what they did instead is they challenged his ethics, right? So they're saying that the APA has a rule where it's called the Goldman Rule, I think, something like that, Goldwater Rule. And it basically says that it's unethical for a psychologist to issue an opinion on a public figure just based on publicly available media and other stuff, right? Without actually doing a proper evaluation, right? And that rule was applied to the president. So from the very beginning, they started insulting this guy's credentials and his ethics to get him upset. But that's not what they were actually trying to do. I mean, they were, but what they wanted to do is they wanted to get this guy fighting for his reputation. I've said on this channel many times, when you have a high-achieving individual, they're almost always high in trait and narcissism, and that's not necessarily like the malignant type of narcissism, right? Doctors, attorneys, people who are highly accomplished, You don't make it through med school and law school without putting yourself first in many situations, without making enormous sacrifices for the sake of your future. You have to be self-centered to a higher degree to be able to pull that off, because if you're not, you won't. And then you're stuck with a ton of debt and, flipping burgers. So you have to be, if you're not high in trait narcissism when you start off in college, you will be by the time you finish med school and law school. But that doesn't automatically make you like a malignant narcissist or anything. It just means that you've accomplished, you've succeeded, and you now have the big ego and the reputation that's being put on the line by being on the stand in a trial as large as the Johnny Depp trial, right? So he was brought on as a expert witness, right? And so the impeachment trap that they caught him into, they got him so busy defending his credibility and his ethics that he missed the loaded question when it came. And so he was up there talking about Johnny Depp's narcissism and how he thought Johnny Depp was a narcissist, but he didn't armchair diagnose him as NPD because he never evaluated him. So he was sitting there talking about the difference between narcissistic traits versus narcissistic personality disorders. And then what they did is they expanded it to cluster B disorders and saying how, trying to argue with him that narcissistic traits alone are not there's no correlation between individual narcissistic traits and intimate partner violence, right? So they got him on that, and then they expanded it very quickly to all cluster B disorders, not just narcissism, but narcissism, borderline, histrionic, antisocial. And he's like, so cluster B traits in general, they are a risk factor for intimate partner violence. And he said, yes. And what about disorders like borderline personality disorder? Yes. What about histrionic personality disorder? Yes. And then they caught him. They said, and are you aware that so far in this trial, there's only been one psychological diagnosis of disorders so far? And that was the diagnosis of Amber Heard. And that's when he realized that he'd gotten duped. Because what they did is they got him to say, okay, he is to be trusted. He is highly ethical. He went through all the motions of defending his reputation, explaining exactly how and why his opinions were valid. They got them talking about narcissism and cluster B stuff. And then, bam, they threw in borderline and histrionics, and he fell right straight into it. And then they said, so far, only one person in the courtroom has been diagnosed. And he's like, are we talking about Johnny Depp here? And like, no, we're talking about Amber Heard here. So they flipped the script. They had him believing that he was talking about Johnny, and he was talking about Johnny. And then they ever so subtly switched it to Amber Heard and got him to testify that Amber Heard's disorders of borderline personality disorder has the highest risk associated with intimate partner violence than any other disorder. Cluster B disorders in general are the ones that carry the highest risk for intimate partner violence, IPV. Histrionic, also a risk factor, but significantly less so. And that was it. That's how they impeached him. But that's why you see this fiery exchange. And it's what I want to get into, because this doctor is high in trait narcissism. I wouldn't call him a narcissist. I wouldn't call him NPD or anything like that, because anybody who has any high degree of trait narcissism is going to get defensive and irate, and they're going to fall into that trap. And it's a very common strategy in the courtroom when you have a highly credentialed witness from opposing counsel. Credibility trap and impeachment is typically an option, but it's a big risk, it's a big gamble, and it doesn't always pay off. In this case, it did. So that's what you see. And there's a whole lot of talk back and forth about either I've seen posts talking about, yay, congratulations, Dr. Spiegel, stand up for yourself, do not be intimidated by these bully attorneys by Johnny Depp, right? And I've seen commentary like that where it's like Dr. Spiegel stands up to bullying and harassment by Johnny Depp's attorneys. Well, just for the first part, but it was a smaller piece of a bigger puzzle that was going on there. And like I said, it worked. That's what they set out to do. They successfully impeached the witness. And it's not something you hear talked about a whole lot on the internet. But like I said, that's what happened. Go back and watch it. You'll see the moment it turns. And yes, it's almost like the attorney. His voice sounds like the Unsolved Mysteries guy, and the doctor looks like Doc Brown from Back to the Future. Great Scott! We got to get back to the future, Morty! Right? That's what it makes me think of. Or Governor Northam from whatever Virginia it is. Anyways, that's what I got. That's what happened. So we'll see what happens. It may very well be that Amber Heard's defense is quietly sitting on a Hail Mary pass of a Johnny Depp diagnosis. But I don't know. We'll see. Yesterday was not yet another bad day for Amber Heard. So Johnny Depp's legal team is nothing short of very clever and amazing. It's awesome to watch them in action. I'm learning a lot. I hope you guys learn a lot as well. Anyways, thank you very much. Please like, comment, or share. I'll see y'all on the next one.